Welcome to CoinShares interview. Today I'm glad to welcome an expert of finance, Balchunas, senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg. Eric is also a writer and I can't wait to talk with him about how big crypto ETFs are getting in the US. Hi Eric, thank you for being with us. Appreciate that.
Great to be here.
Crypto ETF have been launched last year in the US. It's been a huge success. Did you see that coming?
A little. We were pretty bullish. And I remember we were talking about how big do you think these will be? And we thought 10 to 15 billion in net flows in 1 year. They did 38. So they did double our high end. And that number is hard. If you know anybody who's launched ETFs knows that getting net new flows is the hardest number to grow. Assets can go up just because the price goes up. But net flows are like net sales. It's like you have to sell the ETF. So now they're at 40 billion. And then when you add the market appreciation, it goes up to about 120 billion. So this is astonishing, in my opinion. It took gold well over a decade to get to that number. And honestly, the Bitcoin ETFs in the US at 120 billion are just shy of gold. And we think they'll probably triple gold ETFs over the next 3 to 5 years. So we've seen enough. In retrospect, I kind of see why they were so popular. And one of those reasons is, when you try to get Bitcoin on your own, if you're like a normal person, let's say you're not that into it, but you want exposure, it's full of friction. You're either gonna pay a lot on a crypto exchange, like I'm a lot. The exchange rate's pretty brutal. Or you're gonna try to get a wallet and move the stuff into cold, and then you get a transfer from your bank.
It's
a pain.
Yeah.
ETF, you can just roll out of bed in your underwear, fire open Schwab, click buy, you got it. 1 basis point is the spread, 20, 25 bips annual fee, and you got the security of it being somewhere else stored by the biggest asset manager on earth or one of the bigger ones. And then you've got the SEC stamp of approval. So you have that feeling of like, oh, it's regulated too. I mean, sign me up. So the benefit-rich characteristics of the ETF, I think, are on display here. So even though this is a huge win for crypto and Bitcoin, I do think it's a win for the ETF. It shows just how convenient and easy and cheap they are and how many, especially US investors, really lean on them for exposures to everything.
Did it help, according to you, make crypto legit?
Yes. So this is a great point. Right when the BlackRock ETF filing hit, it was June 2023. I think it was less than 2 years since FTX fallout, and that had kind of left a really bad PR in the air. And that, they took out Tom Brady. Tom Brady's like an American hero, and he went down with the ship. And the whole thing was just a disaster.
Larry David included.
Oh, Larry David, Steph Curry. So many of our beloved celebrities went down, Matt Damon. Anyway.
It was a disaster.
It was a disaster. And there was a stench in the air. And it was a feeling of like crypto's just gonna remain over here as some little fringe thing. The price was 30,000 a Bitcoin. BlackRock filed in that moment. This was a moon landing moment in my opinion. If it had been any other issuer, I just don't think it would have meant as much. BlackRock is the biggest asset manager in the world. They file, it's like, whoa, what do they know? Over the next few years, we see Fidelity file, we see Invesco file, ARK, it grows, the SEC finally approves it, it gets out. Then when the ETFs get assets, it starts to legitimize it. Because it's like, oh, well, these institutions are in it. There's a couple pensions that bought it, some hedge funds. So the rest of the people are perking up saying, oh, maybe I could do it too. And then Trump wins, and that brings in like a strategic reserve. So the narrative's just built and built. Now you're at a place where you got corporations adding it to the balance sheet, governments maybe adding it as reserves. So to me, what really, the BlackRock moment was almost like part 2 of the story. Part 1 was real retail, a lot of people working the kinks out, a lot of fraudsters. Part 2 seems to be more like the financialization of Bitcoin and bringing it into the major leagues. And I think the ETF jump-started all of that.
This ecosystem is still maturing though. What's your personal view of digital assets?
I tell you that when I knew they existed, the Winklevoss filed for a Bitcoin ETF in 2013. So I had to learn about it a little bit there. But in my opinion, as a Gen Xer, although I'm called boomer by the crypto people, and my kid who's 14 calls anybody over 25 a boomer. So I guess I'm a boomer. But anyway, I thought crypto and Bitcoin, it was like Taylor Swift. It was something for like younger people over here. It's like, okay, fine. There was 2 things that made me respect it though before I learned. One was its ability to come back from serious drawdowns. It should have died like 3 times. And I thought, that's interesting. Like, how could it come back after that and hit all-time highs? I respect that, something's there. The second thing was, it seemed to piss all the right people off. Like if you're a scold and really uptight, like this bothered you. And those people being upset made me think it had something to it as well. And I'm just being honest. Those two things made me like cool with it. But then I started learning about it. And the more you read, the more you really do get orange pilled. Like you especially if you believe that there's huge problem with global debt and that governments are going to lean on the expediency of printing money to solve every problem from here on out. And as Lynn Alden puts it, nothing stops this train, and fiat, when it cut off from gold in the 70s, since then, if currency debasement is real, if you kind of like believe that, it's hard not to give Bitcoin a fair shake. And then you look how it was designed and you realize the amount of really excellent technology that was built over 20 years up until the 2008 went into the design. And I know from covering Vanguard and the birth of the ETF, big things that are born are never somebody hitting their head on the toilet and going, oh, I have an idea. It's usually somebody in that area who like puts together the best of a couple things, and it all kind of magically enters this one moment, and boom, that's when you have the thing. And I think Bitcoin had that moment. With ETFs, they were born in the late 80s, and they were carved out of ADRs, stock trading, mutual funds. A couple things went into them, and that design, boom, took off. And this was a huge parallel for me. So I found a lot of parallels with the early ETF days and the early crypto days, and that also has made me more interested in it. So I do think the more you learn about it, the more you come around, respect it, the more you probably want to invest in it. But that said, as a Vanguard Boglehead guy, I wrote a book about Jack Bogle and Vanguard before I'm writing the new book. I can't go full crypto. It's like I'm vaccinated because I still believe in stocks and bonds and low-cost index funds. And I realize because I interact with crypto people and like they want none of that. And so I'm not there. But I understand allocating a little bit to it. And a little Bitcoin goes a long way. Yeah. It goes further than gold in your portfolio. It's like, because it got a hot sauce volatility, so you don't need a lot. I do think we're gonna see more people make the transition that I made. And we were just at an event, saw a guy from a major Wall Street firm who's now in crypto. The more and more I mingle in these conferences, the more I see these TradFi people moving over because they see the reason for it. And I think they find it exciting because it's very much got a tech element. It's very exciting. Wall Street and TradFi can feel a little legacy and old compared to it.
Do you think with the ETF and with Bitcoin as well, investors, especially the retail investors, are getting more savvy in terms of investing? They're doing like more ETF than stock picking right now?
ETF investors are the smartest investors on earth because ETFs don't have a distribution fee. They don't pay off a broker to put your grandmother in the fund that's a crap fund. ETFs, you have to find them. So because of that, the people who find ETFs are smart. They've made their way through the BS trying to be sold to them. And they tend to be real cognizant of fees, and they end up having real low-cost portfolios that compound over time, and they get to keep most of their gains. So to me, ETF is the smart money. Crypto investors, it depends who you're talking about. Like in retrospect, if you went all in on Bitcoin, you're a genius. It's just, nobody knew that back then. Then there's altcoins. Some go up or down. Some seem stuck in this like range. And then meme coins are a whole like another level of craziness. That's just like gambling. In the ETF world, we have the same thing. There's Vanguard for like the real serious, that's more like Bitcoin. Then there's like middle of the road stuff that's like speculative, like tech sector ETFs or a uranium ETF. Then there's the real wild stuff. It's like 2x NVIDIA. We'll call it rated R products. A lot of volatility. We call it for degens. So there's a degen element in both industries. So it's hard to say like who's smart, because I would say somebody YOLOing into 2x MicroStrategy ETF may not be the most smartest person, but I would say the people buying Vanguard and holding are really smart. That's a smart idea. I think crypto, same deal. But I will say most of the people you meet are very smart. But I will say there is also a fun and youth to it that you don't get as much in the ETF world. And the meme coins may be part of that, but it's also just like, it just leans younger. And also like the way that the crypto people, if their coin goes down, they take the L and they put the McDonald's hat on. You know what I mean? I like that. Whereas some of the older school people, they're like too uptight. So I like the looseness as well, but I can't judge who's smart or not. If I had to say, honestly, I would say the Vanguardian investors are probably smarter in terms of knowing all of this, because I think some crypto investors don't care to learn about like why a stock is a good investment, like it has cash flow and dividends.
Earnings, yeah.
Your money works for you. I don't know if they really work that hard at learning what else is out there.
What do you think about the current evolution of the regulatory landscape in the US?
It's definitely opening up. The Trump administration has this new person, Atkins, as the chair. So just that alone, Gensler gone, Atkins in is huge. Hester Peirce has a lot more sway. She's been pro-crypto the whole time. So we met with her recently, and I think what you're going to find is they're going to come out with a framework that's going to say, okay, here's what we're going to approve, and here's the framework. That way it's not like every coin is like a whole drama and circus. So I think over the next 5 months, you're going to see a lot of coins approved in ETF format in the US, in spot format, which is that's what you want. Dogecoin will be interesting. It's got all the attributes of a true, but it has no utility. That one will be interesting. If they approve Dogecoin, I think it looks good for some other meme coins. Then you get down the list to stuff like Bonk, and there's a Trump coin ETF. The Trump one will be interesting because the SEC is going to have this really like, it's a total meme coin. And I think normally they'd be like, we can't approve this, but they're going to be like, yeah, but it's our boss's coin. And you don't want a phone call from the boss. So like, that will be interesting. Will they approve the Trump coin? There's also Melania coin. If they approve those, it's just game on. But if they don't, maybe where's the line? Dogecoin. So I would look for the altcoins probably getting out. But then at some point, where's the line? We don't know. If I had to bet, the line will be pretty liberal. I think this SEC will let a lot out, and that's going to be important. I think they will not be totally like anything goes, but it'll be much looser and more libertarian than it was in the past. So look for a lot of deregulation. There's already been a good amount.
We're seeing right now a wave of new Bitcoin treasury companies. Do you think they compete with Bitcoin ETF?
No, I mean a little. I think MicroStrategy is a real anomaly, and the idea of like selling convertible bonds and doing some financial engineering, and he's really smart at that, is an interesting play, and MicroStrategy existed when the ETFs weren't there. So it was a surrogate ETF for a long time with a little leverage. That's the problem. When you buy a treasury Bitcoin stock, you're not getting Bitcoin directly. You're getting it with like some leverage. It could be a little higher than Bitcoin, a little lower. We have found most investors in the US, they want the real thing. So they want an ETF that tracks spot exactly, like GLD for gold. They just want to know they want certainty as they build their portfolio. It's like putting a puzzle together. When they put in the crypto piece, they want it to just track Bitcoin. They don't want to have to like think about a third variable. Oh, is it up or down on Bitcoin? So I think this is going to be, the treasury company will be for people who like the CEO, like what they're saying, and are like more groupies and like followers of that, and hardcore people, and maybe hedge funds. I think the general mass populace will choose the ETF over those.
How do you see the ETF pie grow in the future in the US?
All ETFs?
Yeah.
Oh, we're hugely bullish. I mean, right now we have ETFs globally at about 15 trillion, and we see them going to 35 trillion in the next 9 years, 2035. 35, just remember that. And that's only at 10% growth rate, because we think the stock and bond markets aren't going to go up 20% every year. We think it'll be like more like this maybe. So, but the flows are good. They break the record last year in Europe, in the US. Every region broke a record. ETFs are fast, good, cheap. It's very a benefit-rich vehicle. Hard to bet against that. The only thing coming down the pike is tokenization. And what will that mean? Will people get their wallets and just buy tokens on stocks and ETFs? Maybe. Or will the ETF, once you click buy on the ETF, behind it, it's using the blockchain technology in the back office. I think that's more likely. So if you call that tokenization, I'm very bullish. But I'm not sure I'm sold yet on somebody trading in VOO, which is the Vanguard 500 ETF, which they love. It's get the whole market for no fee. It's hard to disrupt something that's near perfect. Will someone change that to go get their own wallet and do all that jazz? I don't see it. But I do see the blockchain solving a lot of problems and disintermediating some things behind the scenes. But the US investor is not going to go from something with less friction to more friction. It just won't happen. So I don't know how you get to less friction than that scenario I mentioned earlier. Rolling out of bed in your underwear, buy, done. And it's free. I mean, what does token solve there?
Flash round, if you don't mind to conclude. Stocks, bonds, or crypto?
You mean in terms of like investing the next 10 years? So we can't give investment advice?
No, that's you personally, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, is the crypto Bitcoin or a whole basket? Like, is it a market cap weighted basket, or is it like, because are you throwing in like random altcoins?
I know. Yeah.
Okay, look, if you're asking me, do I think Bitcoin will outpace stocks and bonds? Again, I can't give investment advice, but I'd probably lean yes. Simply because it's scarce, right? They're just cannot mine as much to keep up with this coming institutional demand. And the financialization and the legitimacy is so powerful, and the institutions have $100 trillion in assets. You know, they don't need to allocate that much, right? 1% of that is 1 trillion. It's hard to see something that has no new supply, basically, and a lot new demand not doing well. Just the math. That said, there could be some black swan that I don't know. It's no guarantees. But I'm very bullish on the US stock market too. But the scarcity factor of the Bitcoin is powerful.
I already know the answer, but let's try ETF or self-custody.
Oh, ETF. For now, you play fantasy football?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They need to make the Bitcoin as easy as fantasy football. Like your wallet and moving it, it just takes too many steps. It's not familiar enough. The wallet itself is, even the ones with screens are confusing. They need to fantasy footballize it. When it gets there, I might do self-custody or choose it. But right now, the ETF blows away the friction involved with self-custody.
Now it's a tricky one of the US dollar or Bitcoin.
Jeez. You know what? I'm going to say this, that I think they both are, the US dollar is strong, but the Bitcoin can be a check or a policeman of the dollar. Because now that everybody knows Bitcoin's there, and the whole point is that fiat's gone too wild, maybe it'll make us step up our game and be a little more disciplined when it comes to money printing, and that could be good. So I think you can have both, and I think Bitcoin, that's why I tell people who say like Bitcoin's anti-American because you're betting on the fall of the dollar as a reserve currency. I'm like, nah, maybe, but it's better to have a apolitical currency be the thing that we all use than another country if you're American. You'd rather it be Bitcoin than like the Chinese currency, but at least it's something that can check on all the fiat, the governments, because now there's an alternative. You got to get a little better, and that's powerful, and that's a good thing for everybody. So even if you don't even like want to invest in it, don't care about it, it's hard not to think that's not a positive force for the currency debasement.
Mainstream media or prediction market?
A prediction market in a heartbeat. You see the last election? I mean, only Polymarket was even close to right. There's one pollster that got it close, but I love the prediction markets. I don't trust polls at all, really. They're all telling you, who knows who they sample. It's very confusing, and I don't want to do math and try to adjust. The Polymarket is like money. That's why I like covering markets in general. Money wants to make money. There's no bias or BS. And so that's why I like the stock market, like in the tariff tantrum. You saw these headlines, but the stocks went up. And that was interesting. I like the markets for that reason. It removes a lot of that personal bias, and it is what it is. So Polymarket is that for a bunch of things, and it's really an exciting area. Some of the stuff they have polls on or Polymarket on is crazy, but I think they have one for when will Jesus return? I think it was like there's like what 2% chance?
Yeah,
something like that.
It's funny.
It's fun. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate having you.
Thank you.